There is a shadow in the archives of Rouen. The maid's gold bought her chains. I found the ledger that proved it and the map that led from her prison cell to a fortune. It began not in France, but in England. In the clutter of a deceased antiquarian's estate in Winchester, a forgotten portfolio of 15th-century parchment scraps was being sold as a lot. One sheet, misfiled as a monastic grocery list, was something far darker. It was a coded receipt, written in a cramped, legalistic hand. It read, "Item, for the secure conveyance of the sum of 10,000 écus d'or from the treasury of His Majesty, King Henry VI, to the burghers of Rouen, for the purchase of the prisoner known as the Pucelle from the Duke of Burgundy. Transferred this 20th day of November, 1430, disbursement overseen by the bishop." The receipt was signed with a cryptic monogram, a cross superimposed on a key, but scrawled in the margin, in a different, angrier ink, was a line of medieval French. "L'or n'est pas parti. Il attend sous la garde des anges muets." The gold did not leave, it waits under the guard of the mute angels. Historians knew the basic facts. After her capture at Compiègne, Joan of Arc was sold by her Burgundian captors to the English for 10,000 gold écus. The money was to be delivered to Rouen. But this note suggested a stunning possibility. The gold never reached its destination. Was it stolen? Hidden? The hunt for the $40 million in ransom gold had begun. Clue 1. The Guard of the Mute Angels. Anges muets. Mute angels. In the iconography of Rouen, that could only mean one thing: the gargoyles and grotesques on the city's great cathedral, Notre-Dame de Rouen. They were the angels who saw all but could not speak. But which ones? The receipt mentioned the bishop. The Bishop of Beauvais, Pierre Cochon, was the lead judge in Joan's trial. He was also deeply involved in the financial negotiations for her purchase. His personal coat of arms featured 3 keys. The monogram on the receipt matched it. Cochon was the bishop in the note. He had a townhouse in Rouen, near the cathedral. It was largely destroyed, but its cellar, incorporated into later buildings, remained. We gained permission to survey the cellar. It was a cold, vaulted space used for wine storage. On one wall, obscured by centuries of soot and plaster, we found a faded fresco. It depicted the Last Judgment, but with a strange detail. Among the blessed souls being led to heaven were 3 angels with their hands over their mouths, mute angels. One of these angels pointed downward, its finger aimed at the floor. Using ground-penetrating radar, we scanned the flagstones beneath that spot. There was a hollow space, but it contained only dust and rat bones, a false lead. Frustrated, I re-examined the fresco. The angel's finger didn't point straight down. It pointed diagonally, along a line that, if extended, would pass through the cellar wall. We scanned the wall. Behind a foot of stone was a small, sealed niche. Inside, wrapped in rotting velvet, was a book. A beautifully illuminated personal psalter. It was inscribed as belonging to Pierre Cochon. Tucked between the pages for Psalm 51, the Miserere, a plea for mercy, was a slender strip of vellum. It was a sketch, a crude but recognizable map of the Rouen Cathedral rooftops, with one particular gargoyle circled. It was a famous one, the Strige, the pensively crouching demon. The note beside it read, "Où le regard du démon rencontre la flèche de la foi," where the demon's gaze meets the arrow of faith. Clue 222, the demon's gaze and the arrow of faith. The Strige gargoyle sits on the north tower of the cathedral, looking out over the city. Its gaze was a fixed line of sight. The arrow of faith was more obscure. It could be a statue, an architectural feature, or a direction. After days of studying old architectural plans and taking sightings from the gargoyle itself, the answer emerged. The Strige looks southeast. Lining up its stone eyesight across the rooftops, its gaze intersected perfectly with the spire of the church of Saint-Maclou. A soaring, needle-like arrow of stone built in the flamboyant Gothic style. But Saint-Maclou was built after Joan's death, an anachronism. Unless the clue was not about the building but the site. Saint-Maclou was built on the site of an older, demolished church. And before that? City records showed it was once a small Jewish cemetery. expropriated in the 13th century. A place of the old faith, the arrow of faith might be a literal arrow, or a marker. We investigated the alleyway where the sightlines of the gargoyle and the spire intersected. It was a nondescript wall, part of a medieval charity hospital's foundation. Using thermal imaging, we detected a variance in the mortar. One large stone was a later insertion. We carefully removed it. Behind it was a cavity containing a single rusted object, a broadhead arrow tip of English design from the 100 Years' War. It was embedded in a block of beeswax. Wrapped around the shaft was a thin scroll of lead. Unrolled and cleaned, it revealed a list of numbers and a word. 12, 7, 3, 20. I sont. Clue. 3. The numbers and the old woman. 12, 7, 3, 20. 12, 7, 3, 20. Coordinates, a date, a code. Essant was Old French for old woman, Esselante. We tried everything, map grids, Bible verses, psalm numbers. Nothing fit the location. Then, looking at a medieval property map of Rouen, I saw it. The numbers weren't a sequence, they were addresses. In the medieval quarter, properties were listed by maison à l'enseigne de house at the sign of the sign of the 12 apostles, the sign of the 7 sorrows, the sign of the 3 kings, the sign of the 20 crowns. Plotting these 4 locations on the map, they formed a rough quadrilateral. At its center lay a small square that had once held a public well named Le Puits de la Vieille Femme, the old woman's well. I sont. The well had been filled in and paved over in the 18th century. We obtained permission for a core drilling in the quiet cobbled square. At a depth of 6 meters, the drill bit hit not water-bearing gravel, but wood, then metal. We excavated under cover of night, with archaeologists and a security detail. We uncovered the well's original stone lining, and nestled in a side chamber, built into the well shaft just above the water table, was a heavy, iron-bound oak chest. It was sodden, its wood blackened, but intact. It was locked with 3 massive iron locks, each stamped with the royal arms of England, the 3 lions of Plantagenet. Clue 4, the treasure of blood money. The locks were corroded shut. We had to cut them. The moment the lid was pried open, the history of Joan of Arc's betrayal took on a brutal, tangible form. The chest was lined with lead, and it was filled to the brim with gold coins. Not French écus, but English nobles, thousands of them. The noble was the coin of the ransom. Each one, bearing the image of King Henry VI on his ship, represented a piece of the deal that delivered the maid to the flames. We emptied the chest carefully. Beneath the top layers of coins, we found something else, a smaller sealed lead casket. Inside it were documents. The original bill of sale for Joan, signed by representatives of the Duke of Burgundy and witnessed by Cauchon. And a private, anguished letter from Cauchon to an unnamed cardinal, confessing that he had diverted the ransom gold on orders from higher English authorities, who feared it would be captured by French raiders if transported. He was to hide it until the heresy is purged. The letter ended, "The gold burns my conscience more than the fire will burn her. I have placed it where only God and the stone angels see. Let it be lost to man." He hid it, but he couldn't bring himself to destroy the proof. The chest held exactly 10,000 gold nobles, the equivalent of 10,000 écus. It was all there, the entire blood price. The maid's restitution. The discovery sent shockwaves through France and the academic world. The French Ministry of Culture and the Catholic Church, which canonized Joan in 1920, became involved in tense discussions. This was not just treasure, it was an instrument of martyrdom. The valuation was heavy with symbolism. Each gold noble, due to its historical connection, was valued at a minimum of $3,000. The hoard of 10,000 coins had a numismatic value starting at $30 million. The documents were priceless. The lead casket, the chest itself, all were artifacts of the betrayal. A total conservative valuation was placed at $40 million. After legal and diplomatic negotiations, it was decided. The gold would never enter the commercial market. It was acquired by the French nation for a sum equal to its valuation, with the money placed into a perpetual trust for historical research and charities dedicated to social justice. A bitter, poetic restitution. The physical coins and documents are displayed in a stark, dedicated room at the historical Jeanne d'Arc in Rouen, lit by a single shaft of light. The true discovery was Cochon's trapped conscience. He engineered a saint's death, yet he preserved the evidence of her purchase, hiding it as if confessing to the stones. He made the mute angels the witnesses to his sin. For nearly 600 years, the gold slept at the bottom of a forgotten well, beneath the gaze of a stone demon and the arrow of a church built on an old faith. It waited for the ledger of a dead antiquarian and a historian who believed that even in the darkest archives, the truth leaves a receipt to be found. The maid's gold bought her chains, and now it has bought her story back.